All right, everybody. Tonight is going to be very fun. We have with us the man you invite when you're looking for an uptick in credibility to your lectures. One would bring on a Ferrari. Pablo Ferrari is joining us as a contributor. Pablo is a tech entrepreneur from Spain living in San Francisco, a former management consultant at Bain & Company, and former head of artificial intelligence at Verbio, a world-leading company in speech recognition creating AI solutions for companies like Intel or SoftBank. At his present startup, ProcessLabs.ai, he's working on the future of remote software engineering teams and has been backed by top Silicon Valley investors like Y Combinator, which hopefully everyone's heard of, a small name in the Valley. So Pablo, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
And of course, Justin Hoffman, my esteemed colleague, myself. Tonight, we'll be talking about something fun. The reason we had Pablo on is because he's the perfect man to be looking at this. He knows far more than either of us, honestly. But we're going to be talking about trends and Google Trends specifically, and kind of how you can do market research with that, what you can include, and what it's all about. Because at the end of the day, it's really about user behavior and what the trends in human behavior are. So we'll start sharing. All right, great. So as the name implies, trend shows you the popularity or frequency of searches on a given topic over time and location. Essentially, it's a limited window into Google's black box of internal search data. So they've got all the data in the world, essentially, and they're very gracious in allowing us to have access to it, at least for now, because we kind of have to put an asterisk on this because they're kind of limiting it over the past few years. I don't think they're going to get rid of it anytime soon, but it does seem to be somewhat more opaque than it used to be in the previous years. I'm noticing. So however this works, if you're watching this in the future, it could be something else. Maybe it's not Google Trends, maybe it's some other tools, but hopefully there's always a way to kind of get data from search engines as long as people are using them. So zooming out, let's talk about what a trend is. This might seem silly because everyone knows what a trend is, but I always like looking at the etymology of words. And trend as a verb or a noun, the verb form can go back to the 1590s, I guess, and is associated with the river or the coast, the bend and direction of a stream, from Middle English to roll about, turn, or revolve. So it's always got this idea of motion, the direction that things are going, or the way something bends as a noun. And then it became sort of more about human behavior or the course of direction of things. And then finally in the 50s, 1950s, we get the modern version of it, which is, a tendency or fashion in popular culture. So it's not even really an old word the way we're using it, something only like 70 years. But of course, because pop culture became such a thing in the 1900s, 20th century, we all know what a trend is and can give many examples. So to kick it off, we will search one little term, which is an easy trend from the past few years. So fidget spinners. So we will have to filter it and we'll do the past 5 years. And you can see nothing. 2016, the concept of a fidget spinner didn't even exist. And then, oh my gosh, 2017, it was the most popular thing ever. And it died. So
the best example ever.
Very good example of a fidget spinner. Yeah.
It's a great example of a trend, that's for sure.
Right. So that's one type of trend. We're going to talk about these. They're almost like waves. You can give names to them. This is like a blip. It's there and it's gone. Although interestingly, it does seem like it's kind of having an uptick, especially I think if you do, what was it, 2004 to present. Yeah, so nothing huge uptick, and then it's hard to see, but there's a little bit that's coming back, maybe, probably not. So that's sort of a blip, interesting associated one. And this is, I'm just kind of going through examples that show the power of the trends, and they're fun to get this off, but you can see it by region on Google, and you can also see things that are related to fidget spinners. So when I did this earlier, it kind of cued me off to one, which was funny. So it's slime as a toy. So you can compare. Now we're comparing fidget spinners versus slime. And what's funny is they are very well correlated, meaning that they go together and peak in 2017. However, for some reason, slime, you'd say it might have a different trajectory. It has a little bit more of a lasting non-short-lived existence. All right, so getting to be a little bit more serious, how can we use this? And we keep saying this is an amazing tool and it's all about human behavior and sky's the limit, because it really is. If you have the ability to see what people are searching, how many ways are there to use that? Almost infinite. It's like, how many ways are there to use a map, or how many ways are there to use a phone book or a piece of paper? The sky's the limit, but of course there are things that are easier and things that are harder. And so we really encourage you or anyone who gets interested in this to experiment and just be really free form. Think about it as a blank page, and how would you, if you had all of Google's knowledge, do something with it for your business or your creative pursuits, or even just your own curiosity. But we'll talk about some examples, and I'm sure you two will have many more. But these are all things that I thought of. So obviously understanding your customers. Say you have a store and you're selling some items. You can type in what you're selling and see what people are searching that's related to it, and kind of try to put together a word cloud or an association cloud that might give you a view into your customers' experience, like what they're searching for, the reason they're seeking you out. So an interesting one for that I came up with would be weighted blanket. So say you had a store, you're selling weighted blankets, and you want to understand your customers. I don't know why you started a weighted blanket store without knowing what your customers were, but maybe you just knew that was a good product that people like to buy. You might type this in and try to figure things out. So right away, just looking at this, we're humans, we're good at pattern recognition, and you can see, whoa, there are some big drops and spikes throughout the year. And very quickly you might see, okay, December. So every December, we're seeing these spikes in a weighted blanket. What else can you do with this? So you can predict the future very easily. I'm saying that there's a spike right here, there's a spike right here, there's a spike right here. Well, when do we think the next spike will be? Very soon coming up. So if I had the store, I would know that very quickly come November, because right now it's summer when we're doing this, or actually early fall. I'd want to do some advertising, and I can predict the future with these trends and project and know that it's going to spike, and I should do all my advertising now to get a bunch of sales. But heading back to understanding our customers, you go down here, and these are the related terms, meaning that when people are searching weighted blankets, Google is telling us these are the things that are related topics to what they are also searching. So they're looking for weight and washing. Maybe washing is kind of an issue, the sizing. So you can tell that they're researching weighted blankets, and you might figure out from this that, oh, it's hard to figure out what size to get. And then you go through here and you go to the next few pages and you see, oh, anxiety. Interesting. So emotional disorder, Black Friday, Bed Bath & Beyond, they're looking for sales, where to buy one in person, where to try one probably. Beads, gravity blankets, cooling, weighted blanket. Oh, so they get hot maybe. So, oh, okay. So I could advertise that mine stays cool because of the material or something like that. And then autism. Oh, interesting. So maybe there's an association with that, which I happen to know that there is, but it's something. So if you didn't know anything about your customers, you might find something out like, oh, I didn't even know people use weighted blankets in that sense. And so you're gaining knowledge from the search engine using these tools. So that's a pretty good example too of understanding an industry. You're kind of getting to automatically, just the three of us here, like we're starting to get I'm sure our ideas are spitting on weighted blankets and stuff like that, and how we could get into that industry. Gaining domain specific vocabulary. So in all of our fields, you're going to naturally, whatever market you're working in, you'll pick up the vocabulary. So in my world, it's always audio, synthesizers, digital audio workstations, codecs, and things like that. If that sounded like a foreign language to you, completely understandable, because it's a domain specific knowledge. It's things that people from without the industry don't know, but within the industry, they do know. And so Google Trends is a perfect way to find that knowledge and get a vocabulary, and very quickly go into a field you're not familiar with and sound like you're an expert. So say you had to give a TED Talk on something tomorrow, you could go research it and at least fumble your way through it a little better than you would otherwise. Curating a brand image. So that goes along with knowing your audience, is the easy way to say all this. Creating the right marketing vibe or tone. So say you were creating a charity, you might Google what charities are or something like that, or just knowing your customers in any field will help you know how to sell to them. So a good one for this, just since we're talking about tones and stuff, I was asked to bring in an example of a product that we do. And this is kind of perfect. We didn't actually use Google Trends much when doing this. We'll talk about that in a second because it's sort of intuitive. But if this had been one of our first products or we were just getting into the field, we definitely could have benefited from that. So it's a product we just came out with called Lo-Fi AF. And even just right off the bat from the name, Lo-Fi AF. So if you don't know, but lo-fi is a type of music, lo-fi musical style. What's the reason we made the product? Well, as you can see, in 2016, it sort of started to become a thing and now is pretty popular and seems to be staying so. We didn't actually look at Google Trends to figure that out. We just happen to know, being in the industry, that it's a popular genre. People like it a lot. It's kind of up and coming, and it's becoming more popular all the time. And then AF is part of the tone of our brand. So if you don't know what that means, it's like as heck. It's an expletive. It's a little bit more vulgar than that. But that in and of itself is a little bit of a joke, which makes it have sort of levity to it. And you could map lo-fi music versus AF meaning, because people Google stuff they don't know. They might see that that's trendy AF and want to look up what AF means if they didn't know. And you can see, well, what is this? In 2014, it starts trending. In 2016, 17, and now it's a term that is funny and vulgar, but look it up if you don't know what it means. So it's all about tone. And I think that's a good version of just knowing your audience when you're making a product, kind of like knowing it to make it serious or funny or this or that. And so this product, when we were designing it and doing the marketing, was all about that for us. So yeah, related terms, you'll see a lot of interesting, sometimes off-color stuff. It's not edited at all, which is kind of cool that they don't censor it. So one of the things, if I were seeing, okay, I needed to write my marketing material and I want to make this appeal to people, well, what are the terms that are associated? Boom, number one, lo-fi hip hop. So I'd go back and I'd say, all right, let's look at the marketing copy that we came up with for the product. And I'll search Control F for hip hop. What's this? We didn't put even one instance of hip hop. So that is an obvious piece of low-hanging fruit to make this product more popular, to rank better on the SEO, to make it come up in searches more often, and to kind of like basically put it within this domain of lo-fi. How to just even subconsciously and consciously explain to our customers that this is about lo-fi hip hop. This is about all the things that you like. We should go in and tag it with lo-fi hip hop. We should put hip hop 3 or 4 times in this. We should put a bunch more terminology that is domain specific and relevant to the topic at hand. So that's an example of how you do this as a business owner. Hey, how's my marketing copy? Maybe I hired someone to write this up. How'd they do? Well, they did a good job. I like how our marketing company did on this, but I think there's some things we could do to improve it. And that's one way you could figure that out. Do you guys have anything to add on this kind of stuff?
I mean, I was having a lot of questions and doubts and thoughts on the data and what is shared and how it works. I don't know where you want the conversation to go. I mean, we could be talking for hours about this.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's limitless, right? This is all human behavior.
Yes. Okay, I'm just going to share my first thought. I'm going to throw it out there and see what happens. Okay, so I'm skeptical on the data that is shared, that is saying like similar things that other people have looked at. You know, like people are searching, like I'm searching for weighted blankets, and they tell me here people also search for autism, or I'm looking for lo-fi and people also look for hip hop. What I'm looking is, it looks like it's all nouns. they're giving me nouns, they're giving me names of stuff.
Right.
But in my experience with search and marketing and SEO, SEM, they're going to be the same person who is looking for stuff is going to be looking for an adjective and probably a location, like cheap blankets in Chicago or premium blankets in New York, right? There is an adjective and there is a location almost always. It depends on the product, but it's very common. And here there is not. In the case of lo-fi, hip hop is a very good one. Like it's the only real one I've seen that you found that I was like, yeah, that's true. I mean, it's lo-fi of the kind hip hop, right? But because it's not a noun. So it looks like they are showing you parts of we get technical in linguistics about it, of an ontology. An ontology is a hierarchy of stuff. There are subsets of stuffs in it. But they're just telling us the nodes of this ontology, the names of what people look about, not their relationships, not their adjectives. And so I was thinking, if I want to build a business about blankets, what I really want Google to give me is to say, okay, I'm looking for weighted blankets. I want to know the adjectives and locations. And I also want to know other types of ratios, like how many times the same person looks for that in different ways, but it's very similar, or how many pages they need to move forward until they find what they are looking for, because that's going to tell me if there is a supply of it. If people are looking for premium weighted blankets in Chicago, and most of them are going to page number 5, or they are searching multiple times for it, I'm like, that's a gap in the market. I need to build that. I need to create that business. So yeah, that was my first thoughts about all this data. Like, it's great. I agree with you. I need way more. Like, how can we get it? Please, Google, give us the data. We want way more.
Completely agreed. That's the problem, right? I mean, I think they used to have a little bit more, not what you're talking about, how many pages on average they go through to get to that. I mean, the tools that actually give us that, but it's very proprietary and hidden. And honestly, you can't get it from Google because only they have access to it, which is kind of sad. But
yes. So
internally, I'm sure that they use
because
that.
It's free, but come on, we want to really build a winning business here.
Yeah. Imagine having access to that, though, if you worked internally. Oh, yeah. Yeah, same thing. I mean, completely agreed. When I was going through this, it's almost frustrating. I mean, it is very frustrating.
So it wasn't really a question. It was just throwing out ideas, like, and I use this a lot. Okay, I've used Google Trends a lot. It's a great tool. It's an awesome tool. We need to know it. But yeah, it will be great to get more.
Are there any tools that are free or even paid right now that give better versions than this?
I don't know. I don't think so. I know for Amazon, they give you that type of things. That's similar, right? You can see what people are looking for. Like, for example, people are looking for weighted blankets, and how many items are there that can supply that demand, and the average number of stars of those of the top. So there is a gap in the market. Like Amazon, like Helium 10 is a good tool, a paid tool that if you are a bit smart, very quickly you find a gap in the market and you know what product you need to go build and market. So Amazon is giving it. Google does not. I don't really know why. I suppose this helps you to know you want to start selling ads, right? Also, I mean, this is useful. Yeah. You want to go into SEM and start selling ads. Yeah, but it's too broad. Like in my experience with ads and so on, you need to be long tail. You need to be detailed, right? The location and the adjective. I need those two, and the quality of the traffic.
Right. Yeah, it's really too bad. But at least it's a good way to kind of get. It's almost like almost a way to augment your just natural learning of an industry, I guess. Since it's so rudimentary, and really limited, like you're saying, it's not. You can't really get down to the AI parts of it, but at least you can just use it as a quick hack for your brain to learn faster than you would otherwise.
I suppose I was thinking how to get that info, like for lo-fi and hip hop, that's a total win. You can improve that website, and absolutely. I think if you use AdWords, if you start paying money to AdWords, doing SEM in Google, eventually you're going to have enough data if you pay for the broad word keyword lo-fi, a lot of people is going to start clicking into your site, and then you can see the actual search term. So what did they look for? Not only lo-fi, but what was around it. So if you spend enough money, eventually you're going to have the data.
Right. And like you're saying, get really in depth. You know, it would be probably paying for best lo-fi audio plugin 2021 or something oddly specific.
Yes. Then you are really going like okay, like people keep looking about this. You may even create like 3 ads, like cheap, premium, and I don't know what else, and value, and just start looking at what people are clicking on. Like that data is going to cost us money today. It's not free yet.
Yeah, well, and also for our students here, I'll show an example, but for this conversation directly related, it's amazing how much they're limiting it, because it might seem like, oh, they're giving us everything, but quite the opposite. For instance, I was trying this, what was it? Best charity, low overhead. That can't be an obscure search. Other people are searching that. But if you search this, not enough data. So, they're completely cutting it off at the legs of all the long tail kind of most fascinating searches, and really only giving us the highest level stuff, which is unfortunate. I don't think used to be the case. So I think that's some kind of new Google stuff that was unfortunate to see. Yeah, so also identifying holes in the market for new products, just keeping an eye on the pulse. If you, like we saw with the weighted blanket, maybe you see, oh, cooling or weighted blanket too warm is a search term that okay, if I made a weighted blanket that's self-cooling or electrically cooling, if that's possible, I think it is, then that would probably be a product that people might want to buy, or at least have a potential filling a hole in the market. Likewise, knowing what products will probably gain popularity over time, so you're not releasing something that's destined to fail, like a fidget spinner in 2018. Knowing what products would pair well with an existing brand. So that's what's fascinating is, I think, well, this will be a good segue, but say you have some sort of a fashion store. These ones are interesting. So flannel as a search term. Let's see. Did I spell that right? Flannel, 2 N's, all right. Flannel, very seasonal, December, versus denim. So 2 fabrics, both related to fashion. You could see that if you had a store, you might want to be doing sales on denim during the winter. During the summer when flannel wasn't popular, and flannel during the winter when it would be popular. So you can kind of pair different products. And if you wanted to find something else seasonal that would match well with flannel, say you have a fashion store, but you want to reach outside of your niche and sell soaps or jewelry or something, then what might you do? Well, you might know that, okay, I get a big spike in flannel every winter. There's got to be something else that's seasonal that would spike in December. Well, we happen to have seen one, not to go back to the weighted blankets a million times, but you could sell weighted blankets that are flannel, or also with your flannel stuff. So you can kind of combine products from different domains and figure out what ways would make that work pretty well. Identifying ways that 2 businesses could be combined. Now that's fascinating. That's a little bit more difficult and gets into higher level behaviors, but I was trying to think of a good example of that, and it would be tough, but one that I thought of was not using these trends, but I think you could kind of help prove it. I was saying, oh, well, say you had a coffee shop in Berkeley, and every day you made all these coffee grounds that just end up being trash. And you say, okay, well, I have this business. We make a bunch of coffee grounds. It just goes in the landfill. Is there some way to use these coffee grounds to kind of spin off another business or combine it with another business? And you could Google around and you could say, okay, uses for coffee grounds. And, there's ways to do this. You can just do this like Google search, but you can see, oh, okay, it's going up over time. Maybe there's a market there. It's trending. It's going up. There's got to be something to that. Hopefully, who knows? And eventually you might come across, oh, okay, people use coffee grounds to make compost, especially if it's organic coffee, you can make really high quality compost. So I have this coffee shop. Now I can make a compost, Berkeley compost, and it comes right from the coffee shop. You can taste the soil, and boom, you've made two businesses, combine them. So we did that without Google Trends, but it could help you if you were researching that and trying to come up with a good example. A fun one. Oh, this is a good one. Finding and selecting brand ambassadors. So funny story on this one. But when we were creating this plugin, we often need artists to kind of rep our brand when we're doing a launch. And so we'll reach out to people. I'm not the best at that. Thankfully, there's other people on our team that do that. But since I listen to a lot of lo-fi hip hop, I just happen to know that there's this artist, Devin Hu, that I really like. And I reached out to him, and it didn't work out, but he did respond and all this stuff. When I now look at the trends, not to diss him at all because he's amazing, but I see that, okay, he was pretty prolific in 2010, 12 on this and stuff, but much less so. It doesn't look like he's done a bunch of releases. I didn't know that. I just knew his music from way back. So he might not have been the best person to reach out for as a brand ambassador for my brand if I want something who's trending. I could easily have used my other artists that I thought about but didn't hit up, Japan with Carrots. And if you see his popularity over time, not too much back in the day, but it's popping. And then right now is projected to go pretty high. So completely opposite. He's a trending artist in that kind of scene, and he would have been the perfect person to reach out for. So instantly you can see, although it might seem kind of sleazy to use it this way, and I don't entirely condone it, it could be a good way to say, like, all right, who is trending in this marketplace? Who do I actually want to try to collaborate with and use as a brand ambassador? So artist relationships, same thing. Identifying competition. We'll just go through a few more of these that were funny. So in and out, let's pretend that you got brought in to do the advertising for In and Out, and you had to do some market research. You don't know anything about fast food. You're just a guy at a marketing company or a person at a marketing company. You got brought in. Well, how do you quickly, within 5 minutes, figure out their competition? Okay, Chick-fil-A, Whataburger, Five Guys. All right, that seems like they're breaking out. That might be a good one. So Five Guys. All right, what's this mysterious company? Five Guys. Five Guys. I'm learning. Restaurant company. Okay, cool. This must be competition. All right, great. So what's happening here? All right. So back in the day, In and Out, 3 times as popular as Five Guys. And then they started gaining market, and my Five Guys kind of took over, and now they're neck and neck. So I'd know going into that meeting to take over the marketing for In and Out that we're trying to go against Five Guys, maybe, or at least
that's a cool one. Let's invest.
Yeah. Also regional. So as we can see here in the hamburger wars of the 2030s, In and Out will probably try to get the whole South. And I think Five Guys is going to take the North, and should be pretty contentious in the battleground states like Texas. That's where the real battleground is, on hamburgers. So yeah, this is how you use trends. It's cool, like Pablo was talking about. And actually, it's funny. It's sort of a gap in my knowledge because my business is not very regional, although it is obviously more than I'm thinking. But regionality is maybe one of the most important points for these search terms, because for all of this stuff, we've been only using the United States. However, worldwide, this is a stupid one for worldwide, but worldwide, you'll see different things, and the results will be different. So obviously, not obvious. That's interesting. So In and Out's really popular in India. Did not see that coming. Must be some reason that I'm not thinking of for that.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think this is a great example, and I agree with all the stuff you guys were discussing earlier about the fidelity of the information. But, you know, these days when you do a regular Google search, the fidelity of your information is even worse. You're essentially getting blogs that are digesting or putting an abstract of the actual information that you're looking for. And this actually is kind of a good way to start with searching in general, because you are getting at least data as a starting point to start looking for things until there's better tools out there, right? And definitely for students or people who are they're essentially in the business of getting somebody's attention and starting to develop relationships and showing interest in either another company, potential employer, to sell something for sales. A tool like this, like what you're demonstrating right now, is extremely powerful. So like if I was a modern individual graduating college and I was applying to some type of job, using a tool like this to as one of my research tools in order to understand who the employer that I'm looking for is and some of the target demographics are of that company, this is really powerful, right? I think as a starting point, and definitely also as a base layer just for a conversation. It gives you quite a bit of data. I do think moving towards what you're showing too, one of the big areas, and you haven't went through the whole list yet, but this
starting points.
It dovetails very closely with finance and sentiment analysis, right? And so there's a lot of tools along those lines as well that are useful for understanding where the market is going, that highly impact financial markets, highly look at user sentiment, right? And Google, of course, is one of those places to receive that information. So as somebody who's going into kind of the world and you're with a certain level of sales mentality, this is really the future of sales, in my opinion, is to know your customer, getting into the detail and knowing your audience. These type of tools are really powerful to start getting a better fidelity perspective of the users you're going to talk to.
Yeah, every time scale too. We haven't even talked about that, and we won't go through too many of these. But just so we've been doing a lot of like 2004 to present, so long scale kind of things. But say you're in fashion or something, you could do the past 7 days would be good. So let's see, fashion. So just, I mean, this is crazy stuff, like fashion, straight up fashion term, past 7 days. So, and then let's just do the US because it's at least a little bit more limited. So yeah, you'll see like the time of day, there's a correlation. So people are searching at, 11 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern or something. And then it's only the very specific, so the past 7 days. So you can see really quick what these new trends in fashion are. So Milan Fashion Week, that must have just happened.
Oh, that's really interesting. And the Pokemon ones, like young people are looking for fashion now. That's giving real insights. That's
yeah.
Nice.
Right. So actually, especially for our students, like, if you're trying to become a YouTuber or something in some very niche thing, that would be more niche than fashion, of course, because we teach, go for the long tail. So you would pick, urban streetwear from Central California fashion. That's your YouTube channel. It's all about urban streetwear from Central California specifically. You're the only one. That would be a pretty good YouTube channel. And if you were trying to do that, you could really quickly like see things, and you'd want to do it right when it's happening, so that as people are catching these trending terms, you have a video there 2 days later. Even that's too much, so maybe 1 day later, but you can catch it if you go fast enough. And that's what these people that are really good at YouTube are doing. They're playing those games and kind of just moving with the algorithm, which might not be the best thing for all of society, but it is what it is right now. So yeah, that's about it. We can talk about a bunch of different examples or go off on this. But just as a last note for our students or anyone watching this, when to use this. So you saw a lot of examples from my domain since I work in it, and it's been, a decade since I've been in the industry. We're kind of doing this all the time without actually going up to Google Trends and looking at it, because I don't need to know that some genre like trap music or lo-fi hip hop or something is trending. I already happen to know that just from spending time in the industry. So you start to become intuitive, and you're intuitively doing this, but you're using it the same way. You're trying to have your finger on the pulse of what is popular, what people are like, or what they're searching for, what they want, and what the industry is heading towards. And so in that sense, it's a really great skill to have this tool, which might be like a crutch that you could use for a while, like training wheels on a bike. And obviously it'll train you to do it intuitively, and it'll just do it in your sleep at some point. I see it kind of like as a writer's prompt, more or less, the way it's built, because like we're talking about, you can't drill super deep into the information. If you could, it would be amazing. I mean, at Google, they have this down to a science. So they even know, like for weighted blanket, they'll know what the person's mood was usually heading into that search. You know, were they in a good place in their life? Were they in a good place in their day? Because they'll know what their mood was 5 minutes before because they were tracking them and everything they're doing. So it's just on another planet, and we'll never have access to that, or not in the near future. But yeah, it's fun, even the tools that we do have, because it's not as good resolution, not as deep, but still very useful. And
Yeah.
Pablo, especially, I'd love to know your thoughts on how you've used these kind of things before.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll throw out like, so there's a lower level kind of river of thought, we would say, or bedrock of thought to what you're talking about. And it's when you're looking at a business or looking at business decisions, you want to try to make them as data oriented as possible, right? And you want to start learning how to, a couple things that this is really useful for as just a foundational tool to get started. I mean, and you use this for your actual business. Like your business is already successful, and this is just a good barometer to go in and check stuff, right? When you do, you know, it'd be great if you could hire like an entire team to go over and cull through this data, but somebody has to build the audio plugins too at the end of the day, right? So this is actually a useful tool, you know, for those type of things to get a snapshot. The other thing that's really useful for is to start looking at data and looking at, you know, sine waves or waves of data, and understanding that a search term is not finite. It's not necessarily just an exponential curve in one direction or just a curve down, but yet that it ebbs and flows. And in order to look into that data to understand where those peaks and valleys are, because that's going to really impact your business and what you're looking for. And then I think the other part of this that's the underlying current is, where do you go to find data, and how do you use data best in order to come up with ideas or make decisions about your business? I know Pablo brought up one of them, which is if you have a really successful app, that app is actually generating data that you get to use as proprietary information. But what do you do when you get started? Like what would be a place to start looking at by using this tool, or maybe even by just using your environment to understand your environment on a deeper level and gather your own data?
Right, or sort of as like a guess but verify kind of thing. You know, I think this will be popular, but let me actually check and, you know, see what the data says. It's at the end of the day, does the data agree with my hypothesis? You can test it.
Well, just answering what you asked before, when have I used this in my life before? For business plans. I've used data for business plans and to convince investors. They don't know these kind of things, these trends. When they see the data going up, when they see the trend, they believe you. But second, if you can teach them that the data was there, they just didn't know. You gain a lot. You already win a lot over them. So I've used it for business plans. And regarding the data and successful apps to get more data, etc. I mean, with what you've searched today, Josh, I already want to do one. Like, you know, the fashion and Pokemon one. Like, you search for fashion and the top 5 was about Pokemon. Or yeah, top 5, 3 of them are Pokemon. I would directly go into, I would create a fake landing site with some designs on fashion for people who like Pokemon. I don't know what that is, but I'll do 3, 4, or 5 different types of fashion for people that like Pokemon. I would spend $200 or $300 in each one for SEM. That will give me a couple of thousand people visiting on my sites, and I'll get that statistics, and I'll get those search terms we were wanting, the detail of the data. And after that, in a week, I have a pretty good picture of an opportunity, probably. So yeah, this data is the beginning of many ideas and further experiments, right? That required a few hours. You need to be able to build a landing site. and maybe with Webflow, or maybe, some HTML, and spend some money to get your data back, right? $200 per website, something like that.
This is why we keep you around instead of going and spending $600 on Google Ads for this Pokemon Go experiment, which wouldn't have given you much. You create 2 fake websites and collect your own data and, and analyze it and figure it out yourself.
It's a period I'm very busy now because I really want to know what's behind those Pokemon searches now. Fashion and Pokemon people, I really want to know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is actually what's addicting about this stuff. Once you start playing with it, like all afternoon, I was just having fun.
You generate a lot of your own data, Pablo, right? For example, you will share your work with other people just to get individuals' data and stuff like that. What are other ways that you go about creating data or getting more fidelity before you make a big decision? Like, let's say when you first get started on an idea.
So the validation of the idea, right? The number one validation that you want is people paying money. You want people paying. So a very low validation is your friends and family like it. A slightly better but low validation is, for example, that a trend is going up, but it's a good validation. It's just not enough to go invest your life in it. So once you see that's going up, the next one can be these fake landing sites I was talking about. Okay, if people jump in and they click in buy and so on, that's good. But the real validation before going full on into an idea is that people are paying you money for something around your idea.
Right.
That's the closest to the money, the better you have validated the idea. And there are many ways to do that. Like you can go into consultancy mode to solve the thing. I've seen even entrepreneurs doing user interviews and telling the person they're interviewing, this was for a browser. This person was making a new type of browser. And he interviewed 2,000 people and told them, if you pay me $10 now to my Venmo and 200 people do that, I'll quit my job and go build this browser. So a browser is a free thing. Wow. And he was asking people to pay them $10 just for the opportunity of this guy solving their problem with the browser. He got more than 200 people paying $10 to his Venmo. So he went with that validation of the idea to a venture capital, and the venture capital said, yeah, sure, let's build this browser. So idea validation is the closest you can get to money.
Wow.
And so it sounds like a lot of your ways of doing this type of testing is you have to create some type of mock-up in order to present. Would you don't just go with an idea, mock it up, whether it be with XD as just a design, or take it a step further, use something like Webflow, Squarespace, whatever it is, to quickly mock up a website?
Yeah, I think so. I think mock up a website with Webflow or that type of tools, a survey, it's another type of mock-up, you would say, and even you can ask for money at the end of the survey. Like, would you pay now $15 and I take a call with you 2 hours and help you because you see I'm an expert in this? And so surveys, landing sites, and consulting. Before doing your project and you want to scale it, doing consulting, it's another type of mock-up of the product you will build. So yeah, mock-up it as you can.
Wow.
How would you go about gathering that audience? Friends and family is good, but I'm assuming that, well, rather than be leading with my question, how do you go about gathering your audience? It
depends, right? If it's business to business or business to clients, if for mass market customers, consumers, or if it's for businesses. If it's for businesses, it's simpler because they are in LinkedIn. So you need to first have a guess of who is your ideal customer profile. Let's say this type of company in this situation and this role inside the company. That's my ideal customer profile. It's a guess. And you go and you contact 300 of them on LinkedIn, and you start doing statistics from there. The contact should be about doing a user interview. Like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm building this idea. I'm interviewing experts in the field like you. Could you give me 20 minutes to give me your feedback and hopefully become a design partner in my project? You do that with 300, no one answered you, that's feedback. 30 answered you and you're having 30 interviews, great. You know, you're going to learn a lot. That for enterprise is easier because it's that way. If it's for consumer, then it's more what we're talking, the landing sites, and you know, you need to catch the traffic. The traffic is there. This tool can help you a lot to find where the traffic is, how they think about. So there are many ways to get that traffic into your site.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh. I
No,
actually had a question.
It's just fascinating just to think about spinning something up so quickly to gather. But that is the most direct way. And I like how direct all of your examples were. It's like,
oh, thank you.
No nonsense. It's just.
And remember to put the dollar symbol everywhere. Like if you build a landing site and it's for a fake fashion product for Pokemon Go's, we have a buy now button for $19.99, and they click it or not click it. That's what you want to know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't have to, it can be a glitch. You don't have to actually like fulfill the order, but at least you'll know that they tried to.
Well, when they click it, when they click it, you say, hey, sorry, it's not ready yet. We'll let you know when it's available.
That's really smart. It's the opposite of what most people would think intuitively, but so many businesses you hear about kind of got their start that way. Famously, Richard Branson started his airline because the flight was canceled, and he's like, hey, everybody, if we just chip in, we can hire a private plane. And then got all the people to chip in, and then that was the first flight.
He didn't have the internet, right, to validate the ideas as quickly as we can now. Yes, and cheap, fast and cheap.
That's a good point.
I think people have imposter syndrome a lot of times where they don't feel like if they do something like, first of all, you have to be able to actually build it later, right? You have to have a real plan. So that's important too. Don't just advertise.
Or build a team at least, right? Or if you have the statistics, with that you raise the money, with that you build a team. Yeah.
so have a plan in the beginning, just in case things go really well, of course. And then, I think a lot of people would be a little bit shy because they would feel like, well, it's not built yet, so people aren't going to take it seriously or take me seriously or look at me in a certain light. But I love the way that you're framing it because it's not about that. You're proposing a problem that somebody might have. And if that problem is serious enough that they would like it solved, then they're going to look to you and say, yeah, I'll give you a chance to try solving that problem. It's more about that than it is about proposing that you're this expert on creating browsers, for example, right?
Yeah, and it gets out of the problem of premature optimization. You're not trying to optimize all these things before actually having the business plan or get paid first, do it second.
How about for you, Josh? Like, so when you have to create, you have a plugin company, but you create lots of different plugins all, throughout the years. How do you find that beacon to decide which plugin to create next in the series?
It's interesting. We kind of are always doing these things of identifying market holes and stuff, but we treat each of these products almost like it's really creative to us. It's like we put our hearts into these things, so we really only pursue one when we're really passionate about it, and it's there's a little bit of randomness to that. It's like what we get fascinated with, what we want to go towards. So we'll often have maybe 5 or 6 projects we're spinning in the background, kind of tinkering with, trying to find interest. And sometimes it'll be like a shark will say, hey, boom, this is like a hole in the market. People are complaining because maybe one of our competitors sunset one of these products, like they're not going to do an update and they stop selling it. That happens quite often in our industry. And so we'll say, oh, good, we have this experiment. We can hit that hole in the market. But a lot of times it's just what we're feeling, kind of what's inspiring at the moment. So it doesn't really work with I'd say honestly, it's a weakness in that we don't try to hop on these things just to kind of grab the most popularity and customers and stuff. We're just pursuing passion projects sometimes.
So by default would be our vision and roadmap and product roadmap and what we believe it's going to be and our understanding of it. But that's like the fallback feature to build, the one we love and the one we believe in. The first one, what we do is that we go to these clients and we tell them all, hey, we have the feature you want, it's in our roadmap, it's in the vision of this company, but it's not in the immediate roadmap. Now, if you pay X, we prioritize it and it goes into the next sprint and it will be ready in 1 or 2 weeks. And if it's not, you can opt out, we give you back the money. So when you say that to all of them, you start seeing how much they want that feature, right? And many of them are like, oh no, I can wait. And then you find one who says, no, yeah, sure, how much? And they negotiate the price. Good. I mean, if you want to negotiate the price, we're fine, whatever. The matter is that you have validated there's really a pain for you here, and it's a valuable feature. It's not that much about the price.
I love that. I love that idea of kind of testing your client in some sense. I do that a lot too. There's different ways to do it. I mean, we all do it as humans, but if you're collaborating with someone and you can't tell how serious they are, then arrange it so that the next step in the project they have to do, so that you can see if they actually put in the effort to make it move forward. If they do, then you know that they're actually interested. But if they don't, then you know they never were.
Yeah. So Steve Jobs was, for example, really well known for feeling like he knew the customer better than anybody else, right? And then he would just make it. And then there's other groups that will astroturf trends. So they will they will say that this is a trend, and with hope that it's going to catch on, right? Do you have any examples of that, or any thoughts about, obviously that's not a great model to do, especially if you don't have a lot of money, because you have to infuse a lot of money in order to make these things happen. But do you have any thoughts on those type of mentalities or anecdotes regarding that? Either of you guys, actually.
I'll jump in. I think you're never going to invite me back to this podcast, but it's okay. At least you did once. So
no, are you kidding? We love having you on. This is the
best part.
I really like your perspective.
I'm going to speak my mind up again. So for the books I've read on Steve Jobs, I never had the pleasure to meet the guy. When he's asked about how do you know what people want? He always talks about a method. He says he has a method. He says, we have a method to understand what they want. So I don't think that method is him just thinking, and using the product and having a great idea. I suppose he has, since Apple is so secretive and you don't really know what's going on and the methodologies, I think it wasn't as magical as most people think. Can be like a type of Mandela effect. Like we all believe it's like that, but it's really not. It's something else. So I'm skeptical on the Steve Jobs magical genius method. I think what he did is not to share his method too much. That he has a method.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I can counter back to that actually.
Sure, because it's just a random hypothesis. I know. Yeah.
No. I love it. And I think there's actually, first of all, there's different phases of Apple, right? There's the early phase of Apple where a lot of the stuff he was using, he took from Xerox PARC, right? Which was already being developed there.
Right.
But the computer in the beginning was a machine for accounting. And he thought, no, we're going to make this for... And some of that he likely saw at Xerox PARC because there are experiments already happening with creative coding and things like that. But he saw that, and that was against market trend for him to say, let's go that way. There are other things too that he did push in the design realm, which were really visionary. Like with the Lisa computer, the operating system was unbelievably visionary, right? And in that case, he was taking chances that at that time the market was not asking for. The market was asking for typewriters and accounting software, not to make it so that it could be in your kid's bedroom and they can start, doing something more with maybe word processing or design. So at times maybe that is true that he did go against the grain and thought, okay, people will want this when it exists, but I agree with you as well. When it becomes a full-fledged business and corporation and things expand, those methodologies, that's part of the intelligence of the business, right?
Well, Justin, it's the great thing. Every time we meet, we could talk about everything for hours. I can counter that too,
Please do. Let's do this. This is amazing.
So these people, they didn't have Google Trends. If they would have Google Trends, they could have known this in a different way. So by the time Steve Jobs started Apple, they had this type of clubs, I think like the homebrew computer club or the home do-it-yourself, right? Things, right? They were part of that. Yeah, and that was happening all around. I suppose the trend of the do-it-yourself computer clubs all around for personal use were going up. We don't know because we don't have the data, but he was inside there. He was week after week seeing that trend. So I suppose with that information, he was saying, you know what, this nowadays is for nerds because we can build it, but eventually will be for everyone if we make it super easy. So that idea came out of fat data, right? He was gathering by hand week after week or month after one. I think they met once a month. Right. Yeah. So it wasn't automatical. It was data. I
love plus that. Well, for the iPod too, like, so I think about the iPod a lot because it was important to me. There were other MP3 players. And so to me, anyways, to answer your first question, which is how do you identify these things that people, I guess it's sort of like people don't even know they want it before they want it. These things that aren't a thing and creating it as a thing that everyone wants. Hard to do, but it's not like that idea came out of nowhere. I mean, you could have explained it to a kid in the 60s or earlier in 1910. Oh, what if you could carry a million songs in your pocket? And of course, it'd be like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Like, that'd be amazing. That'd be the coolest thing ever. So it was this human desire. There's a million like that. It's hard to unite that with one that's easy to pull off technically. I mean, what's one that's right now that we don't have? Well, I wish I had glasses where I could Photoshop reality, make everything look however I want. Easier said than done. But if it were easy from a technical standpoint, Apple would make it, everyone would use it. It's an obvious thing that no one really knows they want, but everyone would want it the second it were possible.
Adding some method to that, I think at least what we do today and in the startup world is asking questions about the problem that the people have. And by understanding very well their problem and their segment of type of customer, you come up with a solution they didn't ask for. They didn't tell you the solution. They told you enough about the problem. So if you are running a CD player back in the 90s and I ask you like, hey, what do you like about your CD player? And it tells me it goes super fast, I can change fast, like, okay, speed is important. What you don't like? Oh, it has a limit of 10. Oh, and 10 it's not enough? No. How much would be enough? I would like to have all my music. Okay, how much is all your music? Oh, I have about 2,000 songs. Okay, this person needs about 2,000 songs. So suddenly you come up and say, who wouldn't want to have 2,000 songs? Well, the number is taken from the problem of the people, right? That's the way you find, I think, a method in all this chaos for consumer products. Well, maybe even for business. But yeah, you need to ask a lot about their problems.
Yeah, that's like a way to put it. Kind of, yeah, it's more formulaic than we think of. Even for stuff that doesn't exist.
You tell them, a CD player person, hey, how would you like the next CD player to be? I'm sure they didn't input a phone into it or whatever, or they didn't say, I don't know, or they didn't say, I want only one button. I don't think they thought in those details, right? They just said like, easy to use. And they said, and a genius guys or girl said, easy, one button, So yeah.
I want it to automatically update itself and break all the time. I want it to pay for a new one every single year for some stupid reason.
No, I love that. I love that you're kind of making a description of genius, or things that we look at genius as things that are mythical in proportion, as more utilitarian, with understanding your data set, understanding your realm. And from that, actually these advancements are kind of bubbling when you really get into the research and get into the communities where those are. I think that's kind of underlying of what you're discussing it. Would that be correct?
Well, with beautiful words. I hope I said something like that. But yeah, that's like adding some method, like, yeah.
What about ideas that are astroturf, that are fake trends that can sometimes become reality? What do you think about that? Forced trends upon a populace or upon a community, just because one group might think it's a good idea and then they try to bring it, and they might not have as much, they might put together some data as an abstract, but more so they see a purpose, right? What do you think about that?
Wow. I mean, it depends in so many things, right? Is it about a product? Is it about a movement? Like, does it imply a market and customers paying for it? I mean, it's so many things. It brings up
Right.
the crypto market community, of course, as an idea. So if it's about a product, in my opinion, it's easier. You know, if it's a movement or a complaint to the system or so on, that I don't know. I honestly have no clue. But if it's about a product, if that group is big enough, they are a market. So sure, that's Kickstarter, right? That is what Kickstarter does, that kind of things. Enough people, a group big enough wants something, this becomes a product and it's successful. So yeah, for products, it depends on the size of the group. And but if us three and some of our friends, 300 people, decide some kind of new product is going to be great for other type of people, and we market it, we have no ground for that, you know, no truth. It's pure random. We decided to build something to sell it to someone else. That's zero validation, right? In the validation closest to money to those someone else wanted to pay for it, they didn't say so. We're going to build it without the validation. So in a product, it's very easy. In the movements and so on, I don't know. It's a realm I don't quite understand yet.
Yeah, I think it's still complex and chaotic enough that it's hard to predict even for the best predictors.
Right.
Maybe not though.
Right, so products are easy, right? They pay or they don't pay. If they pay, they want it. If they don't pay, they don't want it. It's super simple.
Right. And if you're going to start a business, that's a great way, right? Look for a problem to solve, look for people that would like that problem solved. And now you have an idea, and hopefully you have a passion about solving that problem too. I think that's an extremely important quotient, because it doesn't mean that just because they want that problem solved that it's just going to happen like this, right?
Right. If it would be easy, it would already be solved by someone else. It's going to be tough. So in the path, you're going to have up and downs, and in the downs is where your passion saves you from quitting.
Yeah, good advice.
How do you adjust your data over time? So you created your data in the first place. You had your idea going, and you had enough to launch. Venture capital said, let's go with this idea. We'll give you a little bit of money to get this funded. What do you recommend for people in order to kind of stay on top of it? At what intervals and those type of things to look at data when you're trying to start building out your ideas and look for proof of concept?
Well, again, it depends in a lot of context, and but overall, there's some wins, I'd say, some obvious ones. One is choose the right KPIs. It's usually revenues or engagement. Maybe you're doing a social stuff and you need to measure that people are engaged. Not just they sign up, but they use it, and they use it more every day or every month. So choose well your KPIs and analyze them in cohorts. It's not the same the first 100 people you got from family, friends, and contacts like the first 100 people you got out of the void from ads. Those are different cohorts. You need to measure those metrics and statistics differently. So those two cohorts, segmentation and the right KPIs, and be very critical. You know, be very critical. It's very easy to torture the numbers until they tell your truth, and if you do that, you're going to end up building the idea you wanted and failing with it. So it's very difficult to look at those numbers to understand why you're failing, you know, why it's not going to be working, why it's only going to work 1 year, why you're being able to sell now the first contract, but you know they're not going to renew in the second year, so you're going to die in the Series A or Series B. Like being super critical. Wow. Use that data to be critical, not to say, oh, look, we are growing so fast, you know, vanity metrics, you know, don't use the data for vanity. That's the third one, and it's tough because it's ego in the way, right? And ego is always tough.
Yeah, I actually was going to go another direction, but what you just said about vanity metrics, it seems that some startups use vanity metrics in order to get more funding so that they could actually push their business farther along the
No, you
line.
don't say.
I suppose a lot of people do, but if it's a good investor, they're going to look at the metric and ask questions about the metrics. For example, a classic one, sometimes it's not even vanity metrics. It's just that the founders are not being critical. They want to believe. They are blinded. They want to believe. It's not anything wrong. It's not vanity. It's not bad. It's simply they're not being critical and skeptical. So a classic one that I find on First Founders is they say like, oh, we build this social app and our user base is growing 100% month over month. We're growing super fast and the customer acquisition cost is cheap. It's like $3 per new user. And I'm like, okay, so what's the engagement? Like, what do you mean with the engagement? Like, I'm like, are you measuring engagement? Do you know like the classic metrics to measure engagement?
Yeah.
Like daily active user, weekly active users, monthly active users, ratios of daily active users over monthly active users. They're like, no, okay, you gotta measure that because sure, maybe you are putting a lot of people into your landing site. The landing site is cool, they sign up and they never use it again.
Right.
So you need to know the engagement metrics. So that's a classic one. And it's not that they wanna lie to anyone, it's that they don't know. So when they go and check this kind of metrics, then we know if they have something or not. So if the investors are good, those vanity metrics are not gonna work very well, you know. And if the investor is bad, it's terrible for the entrepreneurs because they're gonna waste a couple of years of their lives. They're gonna get the money. They have false metrics. They don't even know. It's not that they're bad people, you know, and they've wasted not wasted. They're gonna learn a lot in the way, right? But they got into the project with like a false proposition. They thought this was growing great, and it's
Right. It's a harsh reality that eventually comes to pass.
Yes. So yeah, people can raise money with vanity metrics, mostly with amateur investors, or but not with professionals. The professional investors are super critical. They are super smart, critical. They know way more than you. You know, you're your first or third startup. These guys, they have analyzed 1,000 in the last month. They know the metrics.
Well, there's a lot of people with money in the world. There's a lot of different investors, of course, right?
Yes.
Of course, the ones that you are interacting with are,
yes.
You know.
So if you're a mission-driven entrepreneur, you know, you want to do something that your life is on it. You know, like I have a friend who is the only hearing person in a deaf family. Okay, no one can hear except him, and he's using AI to help deaf people. So this is a mission in his life. So for him, he's gonna keep pushing. You know, there's no way he's gonna close this company. And if the metrics are not going well, he's gonna raise money no matter how, no matter from who, and he will keep hustling and eventually figure it out. So if you're mission driven, sure. But if it's pure, like, you have a passion, but mostly it's about the money. You need, get the best investors you can because they're gonna help you being so critical.
At what point are you at in your own startup right now in terms of maintaining control over the course of it, despite having investment? I mean, what's the size of your team again, and how much control do you have, or how much have you given away?
Right. No, we are getting started. We're 3 people. We're the 2 founders and 1 employee. We raised a seed round. That's about $2.5 million. And
congratulations.
Well, thank you. Raising money. I mean, I just have more responsibility. You know, it's okay. I want revenues. When we have 2.5 million annual in revenues, then we'll do a party. We'll throw a party, but not yet. So for now, the thing is that we got the investment with a mechanism called a SAFE, Simple Agreement for Future Equity. So we didn't give any equity. It's a type of convertible note. So the 2 founders, we still control the 100% of the company. We're equal partners. So we're 2 in the board, the 2 founders. When we do the next round, a Series A, then 1 or 2 investors will join the board. And then is when you start, as you say, losing control. And it's really about the board seats. It's not that much about the percentage of the company you own. It's about how many board seats you are giving. Some people manage to control the board because they give board seats to friends. You know, let's say we accept an advisor in our company that is going to have very, very little equity, and we're going to give him a board seat because it's our friend. And then we have a huge investor who put 90% of the money we're going to be using, and we give this person 2 seats. So my friend and me were 2, and the investor is 2. It's pretty equal. You are controlling the board by these type of games. I don't recommend it. Like at the end, you need to be loyal to the project, not to yourself. You don't want the board to be controlled by a person. You want the board to be controlled by the project and do the best for the project. Sometimes the best for the project is what you don't want as a person. So it's good to have a good governance, a fair governance. For that, ideally, you choose very smart people who know a lot about the industry. With that, and they're better than you. With that, if they decide to kick you out or they decide something you don't like, it's okay. It's good for your company, so for the project. So that's about losing control. Let's say it's okay if you give the control to the right people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I like what you're saying about, if you design it right, you don't have to be worried about losing control, because ideally that should be the best for the product. That's a very mature way to look at it.
It's not about you. That's the thing. You always need to remove yourself from the equation, as we know that it's most in life. And with your own company, it's hard, but it's the same.
What kind of psychological mentality does one have when they are creating a startup, and what to really expect? You hear all the stories and all these different things that usually from the people who succeed, right? Oh, I was sleeping on the floor of my friend's house for this amount of time, and now I'm a billionaire, and these kinds of things. But what for somebody starting out that has a dream of being an entrepreneur and creating a startup, what are the kind of psychological type of mentality or things they might experience that'd be good to know before taking that journey?
Right, what a question. So I don't know what to say. Like, I don't want to encourage anyone to do it, even though it's great for the economy, it's great. It's more jobs and innovation and taxes. Like, it's amazing for all of us. So please, a lot of people go and do it. But for yourself, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be bad, in so many dimensions. So I suppose that brings us to resilience. You need to be resilient. You're resilient. You're going to suffer. So yeah, hard work. Don't quit. Embrace the no. Embrace problems. Try to find the lesson in every problem and in every defeat. Don't quit unless data is so obvious, telling you so obvious, that it's over. But try to be not emotional. That's why data is so useful. To decide what to build and to decide what not to build, and if you keep going or if you quit. So yeah, data-driven, not emotional, prepare yourself to suffer, embrace no's. I don't know. The other option is, you're very passionate. You're very passionate, so you go for that. It's not going to be enough, like if you're very passionate and then you're not resilient or you're weak or you quit easy, it's just going to be a short, crazy, fun adventure with some learnings, which is okay. Maybe so if you really feel inside you were born to build things, stuff, and companies, just go do it. It's gonna be difficult, and you're gonna suffer and learn, but that's how you do it. It's like you want to start doing rock climbing, and people ask you, well, what? I want to go to the gym for a year before I go rock climbing. So what muscles should I train? It's like, no, don't go to the gym. Go rock climbing. So if you start rock climbing, it's going to be super tough at the beginning, but you're doing the exact muscles you need. So if you want to build stuff, go build stuff.
So I think it's Elon Musk that says, I don't know if it's his quote. I've heard him say it, fail fast, right? And so you're essentially telling people, if you want to be an entrepreneur, go out and try it. And that's the only way to learn how to become one. But don't necessarily expect you're going to become one the first week, but maybe look at it in a psychological mentality of this is a learning process and scale it that way. I mean, okay, you're you're coming out of, your one of your children is coming out of high school or college, and they want to build stuff based on your experience. I think you're going to assume, okay, in 1 year, you're likely not going to be the next Apple computers. But I'm really glad that you want to take this journey. What would you tell them to maybe strategically scale their learnings so that they could kind of stay?
Yeah. So be careful when you dive fully, when you go fully. And again, the thing about the validation we were talking about. So at the beginning, ideally, you do it as a side project. You have your job that is paying the rent, and you don't have problems. You can feed your children. And you have a side project, which is going to be an effort with your nights and your weekends. And the first 100 hours of this idea side project should be about validation. What we're talking about, find user interviews, find people who want to pay for it, find potential contracts, find design partners. It's a lot of talking, not that much building. You build enough to show and get more feedback. Those are, I'd say, put 100 hours in that. If after 100 hours as a side project is going to take you some time, you still have the same objectives for the next 100 hours, something is not going well. If after this 100 hours, you have data or interviews or answers that excites you, that are looking good, then you go into project mode, which means you invite other people. Now, this is a project. Who is the team you need? Let's build something else together. We all put 100 hours, and now we are going to build something more serious and more real. And then if you get money, like someone now is really paying for it, like they paid and they experienced the product. It's super buggy, super bad, but they are paying for your bugs, for your buggy product. They really have a problem, right? You're doing something well. You're solving something that is
they're paying for your bugs.
Solve. Yes, it's a bad way to say that. Sometimes I feel we're deploying bugs, and I talk with my co-founder, like, we know there is a bug, and we're like, should we fix it? And we're like, no one has ever used that feature. It's the first time we launched this feature. If someone finds the bug, it's a good news. We'll go fix it.
Yeah.
It means the feature is worth it. So that's like, yeah, it's gonna be buggy at the beginning. Okay, it's fine. And if you get people paying, then I'd say it's starting to look good. Like for a moment to raise some pre-seed money, enough for your salary for 18 months, super ramen profitability, ramen salaries, like enough to eat ramen and work all day. And that would be a point where it's okay to take that risk. I've seen many other ways. There are many other ways, but I think this might be the best one that very few people actually do. Yeah.
I'm curious. Like I'm curious about Josh's advice on this as well, actually.
Well, it's funny. Just as you're talking about this, we did it all the wrong way. But
me too. By the way, me too. I did it all the wrong way. Okay.
Yeah, we just, I don't know. We didn't do it the wrong way in some sense, because like you're saying, we just hit the ground running. We just wanted to make products. We built one and sold it and started selling it, and direct. But we didn't do any market research. We just kind of had to figure it out while we were doing it. Because of that, yeah, the early years were slow. So yeah, I guess it sort of worked out, but if I think back, did cost us maybe 3 years of slow growth that would have been fast growth if we knew exactly what to do. So yeah, it could have been, probably would have been faster to do it the right way and kind of do market research and talk to people and evaluation, essentially, like you're talking about.
Right. I suppose we all know the theory, but then you get passionate about something, you have enough savings to quit your job for 2 years, a year and a half, and you go fully in and you say, well, in the way I'll figure it out. Yeah, that happens. It's not the right way to do it. That happens a lot.
Yeah. And then handling failure is another thing, right? Like, so if it doesn't work out, what do you do? What do you do when people come to you and they say, oh, so, let's make up a different person's name because I don't want to jinx anybody here. Hey, Johnny. Yeah. So that telephone company that you guys were building the other day, how's that going? And now Johnny doesn't have the telephone company anymore. As a matter of fact, he would like to give that person his resume. or
Right.
something along those lines. What do you, that's often the hardest part. People don't
Yeah.
start because they're afraid of that conversation.
Right.
How do you handle that?
You want to go, Josh, or I go? I mean,
I don't know. It's I don't think I've had that exact conversation, so maybe I'm not the right one to answer
well,
that.
I've closed companies before. I've crashed, landed companies before. So yeah, it's life goes on. You know, you don't disappear when that happens. You don't get disintegrated and go to hell right afterwards. It's fine. So it's not nice. It's not. You might get depressed in the way. I mean, it's not a nice thing to leave, but life goes on. Don't worry. It's okay. Ideally, you know when the company is going to crash. Like you can smell it, and you're not being blinded, and you're critical. So you do a soft landing. So you still have some money in the bank, you still have some 4-6 months of runway, but you see this is not growing as you want. No one else believes in the product. The clients don't pay for it. The partners don't believe in it. You say, okay, you know what? With the next 6 months, we're going to soft land. So we're going to try to sell it to other companies as an acqui-hire. They pay some money and they give us a job. And hey, you can put now in your resume acquired by X. No one is going to know the amount of money. And they give you a great job, and high five, you tried it, you made a company and you sold it. I mean, it's not that easy, you know? So even if you fail, it can be very good for your career and your learnings. The worst way to fail is if you simply close the company, don't sell it, and you go on vacations for a year because you're depressed, right? That's the worst. Even though it's not that bad, because people in this industry of startups and innovation, they know how hard it is. They know that you fail multiple times until you make it. They know that in each failure, you have a lot of lessons learned. So I remember an investor that invested in one of my companies right after I crash landed one. The only one that I crash landed that, he invested on it. And I was like, you know, we just did super bad in the last one, right? I don't want to lie to you. Like you got this right? And he was like, okay, so you build this company, you raise this amount of money, you have 30-something employees, it was all these years, and then you crashed. He was like, well, I'm leveraging all the investment these people has given you to train you, and I got that for free. Sure, I'm going to invest in you. So yeah, it's not that such a failure. You know, it's only if it's like that in your mind. So don't be afraid of it. I would be more afraid of not trying. Like you have something inside you, you really want to do it, you never try in your life. I would be very afraid of that. Like take that risk. It's going to worth it, even if it goes well as a business or not. My take on it is if you don't do it, it's always going to be in the back of your mind. However successful you are, there are going to be ups and downs. It's always in life. And in the downs, you're going to say, oh, I never tried that idea. And this other company made it. I knew it. Sure.
Yeah, because it can be so good for your soul just to understand, even if it fails, much better than not trying, because you at least understand why the idea didn't work. Otherwise, you're going to be bugging yourself. Oh, would that have worked? Why wouldn't it work? You know, if something like that.
And if you're still passionate about building things, now you know a lot.
Yeah. I'd say knowing when to call it a failure, or like knowing when to walk away, or when to get out is hard.
Failure, right? Profit and losses failure. Like the company is losing so much money that it ends up closing, and every partner who invested in it lost their money. Like that's a business failure, right?
Right.
No, but I mean more like knowing when to walk and stuff. And obviously, like you're saying, you can smell it from a mile away and stuff. But sometimes it's not the same thing. Something sort of just sizzling and not really getting any users. I've seen a lot of startups like that. I talk
about that a lot with some
stagnant
friends. Yeah, with some entrepreneurs friends, and I'd say the community I'm into, what they usually end up agreeing on is the startup dies when the founders lose their motivation. If you stop having motivation for your company, you're going to close it. If you still have motivation, even if you are out of money, you're going to hustle your way out. You're going to take half of your time and do consulting at the same time. And with that money, again, you keep pushing it. Like, you're going to really find a way to make enough money to pay for your food, and you're going to crash in a friend's couch for a few months while you redo yourself and make some savings. Like, really, if there is motivation, you're unstoppable. So
that's true.
when you don't have motivation, even if you have a lot of money in the bank because you just raised a lot of money, but you stop being motivated for your project, you're going to close it. You're going to close that company. So it's really the founder's motivation, the real fuel of a startup. It's not the money. That comes later. The money is the fuel of the company, like at Series A, B, C, when you have a lot of employees, but and other problems. I mean, overhead. I mean, but when it's just you, the founders, some service money, you can make it.
Yeah, that's pretty wise, actually. It's funny because it's all psychological. It's a very psychological process.
For sure.
Right. Well, it's just my take on it. Take all this with a pinch of salt, and if someone is listening to this, don't do it. Don't go. Yep.
You gave so many good reasons to try. No, but know what you're getting yourself into, but don't be afraid to fail at the end. Still take pride in the experience you went through, but be sober about the process. Don't try to cover things up, I guess, is kind of.
Yeah, and don't take yourself too seriously. Yeah, don't take yourself too seriously. If it fails, it fails. Yeah, it happens. Learn a lot. Soft land it. Keep moving. Keep doing more things. Yeah.
Like fail quickly, fail gracefully, fail interestingly, because like Pablo was saying, I mean, just talking to someone in any situation. Oh, I had a failed startup. Tell me more about that. That's just like, it's already interesting.
That's right.
Amazing. Okay, well, thanks, guys. I'd love to do this again with you, Pablo. We would absolutely love it.
So whenever we raise the Series A or we close the company, we can do it again.
Sounds good. Well, we'll look forward to Series A for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm a realist, so every option is in the realm of possibility.